What's a dead giveaway that someone has low intelligence? They have a hard time understanding how a concept in one context could apply to another context. My ex-mill once debated me for half an hour that dry measuring cups, like the scoops, and wet measuring cups, glass vessel with measurements, held different volume. I had to go scoop out a cup of flour and dump it into the Pyrex for her to understand that one cup is one cup, no matter the vessel. ETA. The debate wasn't whether or not using dry cups or wet cups matter. I actually think it doesn't use the appropriate measurement vessel when I bake. The debate was that 1-to-1 they are different, and they aren't. The volume of one cup is one cup no matter the vessel. Look, I'm absolutely the kinda guy that wants to believe etc. but come on, this guy's a known fraud. There's zero peers review on these things, and the data he presented is all super shady if not completely bonkers. How can someone possibly trust these as incredible proofs and world-changing discoveries is beyond me. I'd argue that is sort of a social intelligence though. People trust confident people. It just depends on if that person is willing to accept when it's proven they are wrong. The world typically rewards these people the most, actually. These are your business owners and corporate ladder climbers. They fail quite often and are wrong quite often, but they learn from these experiences and are confident enough to push forward regardless of failing or being wrong previously. They tell you about the time they scored 450 in an online IQ test. Over my years of the early internet, it was always easy to spot to a pseudo-intellectual by how readily they dropped 200 or close to 200 as their score. Because they didn't know that's a ludicrous score to lie about. I once did a test and it told me my result is outside the range it could measure. That's a good thing, right? The standard test measures for standard scores. If you score high or low, your results would show up as disproportionately higher or lower than they actually would be if I remember right, and they would have to have you take another test more suited to your level. At least that's how it was when I was tested. I got a nice little pat on the back with the bragging rights I had with my results, but now I have brain damage and, while people who didn't know me before the injury don't notice anything unusual, everyone that knew me before has noticed that I'm quite a bit slower than I used to be. Don't watch Inside Out and don't read Flowers for Algernon. People don't understand that you're grieving a loss. The old you has died and is never coming back. You would get sympathy if you lost a child or relative. But when you've lost a piece of yourself, no one really understands that. If you try to explain it, they'll just say that, you seem fine, or that, you seem pretty smart to me. But you know, seeming smart is not the same as actually being smart. There is a qualitative difference in capability. If you lost a limb, people would understand that you grieve the loss of capability. But for some reason, when you lose an indeterminate amount of intellectual capability, no one really cares. I've adapted to the loss of capability. But it still frustrates me often when I can't do the things I used to be able to do. I have a grandfather that legitimately scored into Mensa and Prometheus. And watching him age and stubbornly combat against losing himself is certainly something. He's not arrogant, prideful, or boastful. He'll never talk about it. But I can see where he struggles. Sometimes at the end of days, all we have is our legacy. If you don't mind my asking, what is it about Inside Out that you found upsetting? If it makes you feel any better, this internet stranger definitely understands what you just said, and cares. I imagine it would be a bit like waking up shorter one morning, and everyone saying, but you're still average height. Yes, I have height, but I'm no longer my height. After one of the big island of memories collapses and fall into the pit, sadness says that means that Riley could lose family, and friendship, and hockey. She says to Joy, you can fix this. And Joy has a plan, so there is hope. For me, there is no fixing it. There is no plan. There is no hope to save those things already lost. They are simply gone. There is only acceptance. There is no plan, nor could there be one. For me, all of my memories are like Bing Bong stuck in the pit and fading away forever. It's very hard to watch Inside Out when you've lost so much that you don't know what you've lost. You only know that you're looking at the empty space where things once were, and wondering what used to be there. Thanks for being so clear about it. My partner suffered a severe TBI 5 months ago. He's recovering amazingly. However, when people say, he's fine, He looks fine, it hurts. It hurts so bad because fine, for the outsiders is no the same, fine, for him, or even for me or my 5-yo. She can even assess that he's is getting better, but she says, Daddy is almost fine. I don't want to sound as a ungrateful but I know something is gone. It's early to tell, but he's been handling it like a champ. There's no fixing for what I have lost as well, a whole other life. It's so painful that I am still actively repressing my memories, even turned off the feckin' stories or memories that pop on Google Photos, etc. I'm yet to get to the acceptance phase. I hope you find joy and peace if you haven't yet. Much love. I drive a school bus and had a bunch of junior high students yelling, "We're better than you," at people out the window yesterday. In between shouts I said, you know, one sign of being better than everyone is that you don't tell people you are. Usually that implies the opposite. One kid then yelled, "We're losers," out the window, and we all had a laugh. They stopped yelling after that. I done a Facebook IQ test and did super good. I got all the answers right. Just had to answer a bunch of questions about what my passwords and usernames were for my bank. I did so good at it they said I could work in law. Gave me a form to fill out about being a powerful attorney. Just waiting for my lawing certificate to come in the post. Did this IQ test with some people at work. This one lady who was always giving me shit started making fun of me for lying because I got 126 and there's no way you got that score. Einstein was only 100 inches with her score coming in at 80. The room went dead silent. I still think about that moment fondly. I used to work in a warehouse, and people's secondary school results came up as a topic. One girl was lauding it over everyone else because she got some C's, a passing grade, in a few topics. None of them believed my grades. I was working there to earn some quick money before starting my PhD. Still, many people don't know that there are different methods used for the tests. Different IQ scales, so one can be rather high in one, but low in the other one. It's also funny about history. When they wrote the Einstein biography, they thought he was a bad student. But that was a mistake. Einstein got to school in Switzerland, where 6 is the best score you can achieve, 1 is the lowest. In Germany, 1 is the best and 6 the worst. The only thing Einstein really struggled with and didn't achieve the 4 that was needed to pass, was learning French. He failed with a 3.5 score in the exams. Instead of having a good point in an argument, they call you names and insult you. Have a coworker like this. Take the time to listen to her company plaintiff, try to interject my point and she talks over me. She cries how I'm hurting her feelings. She's a simple-minded fuckwit. My neighbor is like this, parks across my driveway blocking us in out, has visitors of his crash into our fence twice and then screams at me because the fence is leaning into his garden because of the crash damage. He genuinely thinks he can park anywhere and nobody can do anything about it. If you try and talk reason with him he just screams. I don't necessarily agree with this. The other day, I was in a social media argument with an old high school classmate who was telling everyone that planes didn't really hit the WTC on 9/11, and instead the government used holograms to make people believe planes hit the buildings so they could blow it up from inside. I called her a cook. Her response was that she clearly had won the argument, and I wasn't very intelligent if I insulted her instead of refuting her points. No, some positions aren't worthy of reasoned debate. They are only deserving of derision and ridicule. Arguing with 9/11 truthers and book banners instead of insulting them creates the illusion that theirs is a worthy position which merits thoughtful discussion. No critical thought. I knew a lady who got suspicious of the donkey charity adverts on TV because, if they're helping new donkeys, why are they still showing the old ones? Edit. Thank you for the upvotes. I am howling at the comments. You guys are brilliant. Bravo. One sign that a person is stupid is that they went their entire fucking life not realizing that the name Don Quixote sounds out, donkey, in its first 2 syllables until today. That person is me. I am stupid. There's a chain of grocery, electronics, jewelry, watch, cosmetic, adult appliance, novelty stores called Don Quixote. Their website is donkey.com, and they have a jingle that plays in the store that goes, Don Don Don, Donkey, Donkey, Hote. So really it depends on the context. Lol. Edit. Oh, and I almost forgot, they're colloquially called Don Q. Or in the case of the really big ones, Mega Don Q. A lot of comments here describing mean, rude, asshole, low IQ PPL. Some low IQ PPL are extremely kind and have a tough time in society because they get used. Some people with cognitive disabilities deal with this too, such kind, gentle people that spend their lives being walked all over. Yep, I have ADHD and autism. I am actually fairly intelligent, but I can't get any of it out gracefully, so I get labeled as dumb a lot. It's the recalling of what I know in real time that everyone gets caught up on. Never mind that I know more about probably anything. I just need help getting it out in a way that doesn't make me sound scatterbrained. You sound exactly like me. So much so, it hurts a little too red, actually almost as though I'm being mocked by the world. Nonetheless, I've been working on allowing myself down in order to deliberately choose my words to hopefully be more graceful. I haven't had stellar progress, but I've made notable progress. Neuroplasticity is absolutely real. Remember that and use it to your advantage. Like me, your mind is probably so internally unbound it's difficult to know where to begin. But in order to begin, first you gotta be still, right? So what works for me is this. Slow down, still the mind, and enter the moment. That shit is crazy hard for me because I often have several diverging branches of cognition toward a matter, but meditation helps with that. Usually what needs to be said flows through like a single channel and I'm good. My nerves often knock me out of the moment too. I also contend with the idea of how much I don't know compared to others. I do not have my life together and it's really screwing with me. I may be the stupid one and don't know. Yeah, I have a low IQ, was assessed when diagnosed with autism, and it's really frustrating to not understand things, but I do not go out of my way to be mean. I get angry easily, but I mostly just cry and go off to be alone when I'm like that. No need to take it out on everyone else. Was just thinking of a girl I went to high school with. I can't quite describe it. She was slower than most but worked 3x as hard to not show it, which tells me she wasn't low IQ. Her Spanish vocabulary was way better than mine, but she couldn't put it all together to read a Spanish novel, but she knew every single word, because she drilled them non-stop. Whenever we got group work she was the most reliable, but you had to check her work and walk her through it. I don't like ops question because there are so many more facets to this social dynamic than just IQ. She might have had a processing disorder. A friend of mine, who is very intelligent, has this issue. She appears slow in some contexts, but she really isn't. She described it as having a very large room in her mind, filled with facts and information. But the doorway in and out of that room was a teeny tiny keyhole. And it just took a long time for information to either get in, or get out. But if you're patient with her, she is astounding. Snap, I've always said, picture your mind as room. Some people only have a few things in there that are neatly organized and can be easily retrieved, whilst I've got a massive pile of information that's just been slung in there chaotically that I have to sift through anytime I try to make a point. It's true. I think these answers are what come to mind when we think of a lower IQ person in our lives. I don't often think about my friend who never got past a third-grade reading level but was a sweetheart and tried her best but was raised in absolute poverty and didn't have a lot of choice in the matter. However, I do think of people like my dad often, whom cannot be wrong or he'll kill you. And everything is God's plan. And I better take horse dewormer. But my dad has a doctorate, not an MD, so. The I can never be wrong personality is unbelievably common in doctors. Which is why it's funny that that is one of the examples of a low IQ person that's so heavily upvoted. I know two surgeons in particular that are complete egotistical assholes who can never be wrong about anything. They also can ace any test you put in front of them, and are complete geniuses in their field. One of them is a neurosurgeon specializing in spinal surgery. If I had to get spinal surgery, he is exactly who I want operating on me. I also hate the guy and would never hang out with him. The tricky part is that people can be extremely smart in some areas while being completely stupid in other ones, so there is no universal indicator, I believe. Yeah, this should be much more upvoted. I still remember the first time I was talking with a PhD, and I realized internally, oh, wow, this guy is kind of an idiot. And it's so true. I'm sure he's brilliant in his field, but his awareness of his own limits was severely lacking. Edit. I didn't mean all, or even most, PhDs. I just meant that the existence of some ignorant, dumb PhDs is a strong example of the fact that people can be extremely smart in some areas while being completely stupid in other ones. E.g., chemists who publicly denigrate climate science, philosophers who publicly denigrate evolutionary biology, civil engineers who publicly denigrate immunology, or, yes, PhDs who can't open their email or check engine oil. The same sort of thing could be said about a master tradesman who is a practical genius with excellent craftsmanship, but who insists that the earth is flat. But none of this means that everyone with a PhD, or a master trades certification, is automatically proud, stupid in other areas. Some experts are very humble, multi-talented, emotionally aware, and very aware of the limits of their learning and expertise. I suppose if you think about it, someone who overachieves in one area and makes that area the main focus of their life could very easily conflate the two separate things. I am incredibly good at this one thing that I have made my life, and I am incredibly good at life. Yeah, totally. It's a human problem, really. I have to constantly remind myself how little I know, and how vulnerable I am to being wrong even when I'm extremely sure of something. People who are truly intelligent grasp concepts much more easily and more quickly than people who aren't. An average Joe can be extremely knowledgeable in one or several areas that they've put a lot of effort into studying, but really dumb otherwise. But all the truly intelligent people I know, not smart, or well-read, or highly educated, but intelligent, learn things very quickly, meaning stuff that you need to understand with your brain, not learning stuff that requires coordination like sports or playing the piano, and are able to apply what they've learned effectively. Having intelligence doesn't always mean having empathy though. Some of these intelligent people can be just plain assholes. Inability to process hypotheticals in the if scenario. That's really the main development people have gone through intellectually over the latest handful of generations. We can entertain, not just what is, but what might be or what could have been. It helps us think in abstract ways that allows us to, for example, categorize information, which is immensely useful in the types of tasks a modern society requires. It helps us with basic skills like arithmetic. If you have 5 apples and then remove 2, how ma? But I don't have 5 apples though. One of the most important abilities it gives us is the ability to put ourselves in someone else's place. How would you feel if you were treated the way you treat others? I'm not, though. Reminds me of that one TED Talk James Flynn made where he talked about how he tried to get his parents to see the wrongness of racism, but imagining waking up the next day and discovering their son was black, which was met by incredulous laughter at the absurdity since they think concretely and cannot think abstractly. It also reminds me of a somewhat related phenomenon in which some people seem to misunderstand how analogies are supposed to work. They will take some dissimilar aspect and assert that the analogy itself falls apart even though all analogies by design have dissimilar aspects to them. Holy shit, this is one of my biggest pet peeves ever. When I first started working, it was really eye-opening the amount of people that do this regularly. I have no problem helping people, but when they ask questions or for help without even trying to figure it out themselves, it annoys the shit out of me. My own personal rule of thumb is that, if I go to someone for help, I always explain or show them what I've attempted previously or let them know how I'm thinking of approaching an issue. Have to be right all the time. Edit. Guys, I wrote this at like 2:30 a.m. and I had a handful of people that I know personally in mind when I wrote it. I see your criticisms and your arguments and they're all valid, but just know I wasn't speaking on this in a broad, one-size-fits-all sense, but rather about people I know in my daily life. I know it's not what you mean, but I had a really smart friend that would always use non-definitive statements if he wasn't 100% sure about something. Like if I asked him where we're gonna be at X hour in a trip, he would say, if I remember correctly then, but just make sure yourself. He just makes sure he's always accurate with what he says and very clearly expresses his confidence level in something. It's always a pleasure when you ask him something. Meanwhile, there are people that confidently say blatantly wrong things even if they aren't sure, and you're stuck guessing if you should look things up yourself or just trust them on it.